of the very important things and helpful things in relieving lower back pain and also hip issues is by doing glute strengthening, because strengthening your glutes and the glute muscle group adds stability and support around your hips, your pelvis, and in addition to doing core strength, the core and the glutes both work together to add that layer of support and stability. But then how do you strengthen your glutes when you are in pain? Because that's something that I know a lot of you may be struggling with. And I wanted to give you some very important key tips that I personally applied and I still follow that allows me to keep working on my glute strength and keep strengthening throughout the years without triggering a flare-up or contributing to more pain. So one of the things that are really important when you're doing your glute strength is to also include a couple of exercises for your deep core, because that will really help distribute the load throughout your body. When you're doing glute work, your core will be active, it will be ready to kick in, to take on that load, instead of having, for example, your lower back kick in to compensate and help you for certain exercises, like for example, the glute bridges. One set of the bird dog, one set of the dead bug will just get those transverse abdominals to activate and kick in along with the glutes to keep that spine supported while you do your glute exercises. One important tip as well, when say you're doing certain glute exercises, you can do them standing to minimize having to go down on the floor if you have trouble with that. When you're doing glute extensions, make sure that you're not overarching your lower back with every extension. You just want to keep everything nice and stable, and all the movement is coming from your hip. So just you can try it even right now and you're going to feel a difference. So you can try kind of swinging your leg back and forth. And then if you just keep everything nice and stable here, just get that hip backwards, you're going to feel that all that tension is just felt in that glute area. So you can try this right now and do one set on each side and you're going to notice a huge difference. And as you do this exercise, you'll notice that you don't actually have to go backward that much, just focus on that contraction. It can be a really small movement as long as you're focusing on that top contraction, slowly coming back down, resisting the gravity and just slowing that eccentric movement so that you can maximize that contraction at the top of the glute max. So when you're doing, in terms of doing still standing exercises for the glute medius activation, for relief from piriformis syndrome, be very mindful on how you're doing your side-to-side walks. You want to keep your feet straight and you're moving side to side. Make sure that you're not rotating your leg out as you're doing that, because then you're going to get more engagement from the piriformis. Another key thing is that make sure that you're not bending to the side as you do this exercise. Then we're going to get the QL kind of engaged, and we don't want to do that because that can contribute to that side lower back pain that I already talked about in the previous video. So I already made a video on how to release QL tightness and paraspinal tightness in the previous video. So if you are struggling with that, make sure to do those releases. But these are really key things for the glute max and glute med standing exercises. The next tip and advice is to adjust that range of motion. For example, if you're doing the bridge exercise, you can modify the depth with you go down or up, or also your squats, for example. If you're doing the side lateral raises, you don't have to go high up. Keep that range of motion just kind of in between, so nothing too demanding or you kind of have to raise all the way up and then you start to compensate with the QL, or you start to feel that hip tension, especially with the resistance band. Keep that range of motion kind of in between, so you're not pushing your hips outside of ranges that you can't do right now without either compensation or putting more tension on those hips. And really one important tip when it comes to glute strengthening is that you want to do targeted releases before you do your glute activation. So targeted releases for the psoas, for the quads, for the TFL as well, will help you unlock more range of motion. So for example, when you're doing the bridge exercise, you feel that restriction in the your thighs. You can't go up that much and really contract the glutes. So that there's restriction there. So if you can start the exercise or the workout doing some releases, doing some gentle hip flexor stretches, that will really help you unlock more range of motion so you can push those glutes up. The same goes with exercises such as the hip thrust, making sure that there's no restriction here that can inhibit the glutes when we're really trying to activate and maximize on that muscle recruitment. If you also notice that you're noticing more TFL takeover when you're doing glute medius exercises and you're feeling it more on the side of your hip, that is an indication that maybe you're not really getting more of that glute medius, but more of the tensor fascia lata. So you can try to bring in those lower abs in when you're doing certain exercises like the bridges, and really minimizing on that anterior tilt to really get the most out of the glute med. And make sure to always start with hip stability exercises, like things like hip hikes will really help to engage the glute med without having to do a lot of movement. So you're just hiking up and getting that, activation, but there's no lateral side movements where other muscles could kick in. So the hip hikes is a really great exercise that doesn't require lateral movements and will really engage the glute med. So if you're having trouble with lateral side movements, doing things like hip hikes would be really good to add to your routine. And then of course, slowly increase the volume. We want to be progressing slowly, starting with the activation, doing resistance exercises with loop bands, doing compound exercises. So just add a little bit more every time. You don't want to be adding too much. And when it comes to load, make sure you're progressing slowly as well, and increasing the weights slowly throughout your workout. So once you do all this, you're definitely going to notice a reduction in pain in your lower back, because the glutes are the strongest, designed to be the strongest muscles in the body for a reason. And along with other good practices like good posture, body alignment, then you're really gonna end up with a good situation where there's a reduction in pain and there's also good balance overall. So I know this can be too much to take on or know how to apply. So that is exactly why there is the Strong Glutes program that I put together for you that will literally have all of this stuff that I've already discussed already in it. So I have designed each routine to take into account every single thing that I've discussed here, and it will slowly progress to more challenge, but we're gonna start focusing on activation, strengthening, and really getting you to feel your glutes working and building strength as you go. So you can check it out below. I'll put the link below the video. Otherwise, I think that just applying these tips that I just shared now will definitely help you relieve lower back pain.